Coming to you from the Hudson Media Group studio, this is Talking Politics, and I am New Jersey's premier and now 7-time award-winning journalist, Top 100 Latino, Vida Latino Spirit online magazine, and certainly the Garden State's most beloved and factually accurate Hispanic conservative. Yes, it's me, Fernando Uribe. Hope you're all doing well as we begin Hispanic Heritage Month. So a shout out to all of my fellow Hispanics, Latinos, and Latinas. We have a lot to discuss, so let's get started. Here's what I'm thinking about right now. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is Hispanic Heritage Month, and as it is celebrated nationally every September the 15th until October the 15th. And quite frankly, it's an amazing celebration to honor all the contributions within the Hispanic community. So once again, shout out to all my fellow Hispanics, Latinos, and Latinas. No, ladies and gentlemen, it's nobody is Latinx. Can we stop with this woke nonsense? All right, what you're basically telling me is you're a bunch of grown-ass men and women who failed high school biology at some point during their adolescence, and to be honest with you, you might want to keep that to yourself. I mean, I'd be embarrassed about it if I was you. But this is the thing, ladies and gentlemen, about Latinx and all this woke nonsense is that, you know, as far as I'm concerned, the last thing I need is a bunch of white woke people telling me how to identify or woke-splaining as to how to speak the Spanish language. And that's really the essence of what pisses me off about the American left, and more so all the woke fools that I tend to, ridicule every single week, not just on this program, but my other programs statewide. But let me give you perspective here about some notes that really, really caught my eye. Now, listen, ladies and gentlemen, as we all know, Hispanics have it tough enough as it is in this country. As the son of immigrants, I know firsthand, again, the idea about hard work, about having to learn a new language. And yes, I was born here, but English wasn't my native language. I was learning Spanish in the household. Why? Because my parents spoke Spanish. So as they were learning English, so was I. Now, of course, I don't have an accent or anything, and nor does that mean, a hell of a lot. But unfortunately, for many in the Hispanic community, it's a hard habit to kick. And of course, my parents are hardworking immigrants. They came here legally, did it the right way, worked hard, studied, and subsequently are now happily retired, living off of pensions from all the hard work that they put into their careers. And I think that's what most Hispanic families are going through every single day here. Never mind sort of the stereotypes and the prejudice, the fact that maybe we don't speak English as well as our white counterparts or our black counterparts in the workplace. But in any event, now, on top of any type of prejudice that we've been subjected to for decades, regardless of whatever type of, name calling or racist slurs or whatever it is we've been subjected to, now white woke people want to tell us how to identify. And I'm sorry, I'm not having that. And furthermore, this is again, ladies and gentlemen, what makes the left so insufferable. Whether it's, insufferable feminists, cat ladies that stink of cat piss, all of these woke activists that take to social media or mobilize and talk about, well, you know what, Latinx people. No, there's no such thing as Latinx. Ladies and gentlemen, again, for those of us that speak Spanish, okay, I'm a history professor, but I feel now I have to sort of branch out and maybe teach another subject matter. So do I have to teach linguistics now or world languages? Everybody knows when you study Spanish, anything ending with an O is masculine. Anything ending with an A is feminine, and that's the way that our culture has identified. So basically what white woke people want to do is reinvent the language that over 572 million people worldwide communicate with every single day. And again, when I look at these things, what bothers me is the idea that progressives feel that they have every right, are entitled to, try to fix the gendered nature of Spanish. Well, that's how it is. Same way in French, same way in Italian, and many other languages that come from Latin. But you wouldn't know that when you're talking to woke people because, again, they're so consumed with gender identity and identity politics that they forget that culturally, especially in the Hispanic community, we don't subscribe to this stupidity. Okay? As I said earlier, somewhere along the line, if you failed high school biology, that's your problem. That's not mine. Okay, now again, as a guy who's passed multiple science courses, I'm not trying to be sanctimonious or self-righteous here, but the idea that now we are trying to fix a language that has been in existence for centuries, theoretically, okay, ladies and gentlemen. And now progressives and the far left feel that, well, you know what? It's not enough that they now want to, I don't know, reinvent science, right? Because how many genders are there? No. Newsflash, there are two. Again, seems to me you failed high school biology. All right. And for whatever reason, you want to sort of take that gibberish and that woke nonsense and apply it to cultural identity. I'm sorry, as a Hispanic male, as a Latino, I'm not going to stand for it. Now, some people might say, well, Fernando, I think, again, you're making a big hissy fit out of nothing. No, I'm not. Because when it comes to denouncing the woke fools that we are just subjected to on a daily basis, whether it's on the nightly news, right, on cable news specifically, whether it's in social media, pop culture, entertainment, wherever, it seems that, again, not just, white woke people, but woke black people want to do the same things when it comes to telling us how to identify. I hate to break it to you all, that's not going to happen. Again, the Hispanic community, Latinos and Latinas collectively, we're a very traditional type of demographic. Now, like anything else, yes, we can certainly evolve with the times and certain things do change. But one thing that won't change is the way that we identify, the way we look at our language. And it's insulting that for whatever reason, a lot of Hispanics like myself, academics and others have voiced their displeasure about this. They've voiced their opposition, and rightfully so. Again, the last thing we need is progressives telling us what to think and how to live, because this is the dynamic, folks, that really, really upsets me as someone who proudly identifies as a conservative. Stop trying to fix gender. Stop trying to fix cultural identity that maybe doesn't sit well with you. It's not your time. It's not your place to do that. And I'll say it again to everyone on the woke left, all these woke fools, all these social justice clowns that feel that they're doing something positive for the Latino community. No, you're not. What you're trying to do is to minimize our culture. Our culture is comprised of Latinos and Latinas. Again, ladies and gentlemen, the Spanish language is not hard to learn. All right? It's very similar to Latin and Italian and Portuguese and everything else. So it's easy to pick up with due time. The last thing we want, progressives love to do this all the time, is manipulate language and manipulate terms or identity. We can't let them do that. And yes, we see it all the time, don't we? Here in Hudson County, we see it with insufferable, obnoxious groups, like let's say the Hudson County progressives, right? Don't you see it like by some of the leadership, right? Like, for example, like Chiquitin. You know what Chiquitin is, right? Hector Segarra, all 5'1" of him, right? Or other activists throughout the state like Amy Torres, another insufferable feminist with the New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice. It's these type of, Hispanics that do Hispanics like myself a disservice because they're so eager to please progressives. They're so eager to just appease the woke left that they're willing to eat their own. I don't know about you. I prefer they eat themselves. They can walk into traffic for all I care. But for Hispanics like myself that value identity and our culture, I'll be damned if I'm going to let people like the aforementioned try to manipulate language only because they want to be down and they want to be cool and they want to be woke. No, you end up looking like a fool, like everything else you all stand for on the left. And as far as I'm concerned, during Hispanic Heritage Month, I'm here to stand up for Hispanics, I'm here to stand up for Latinos, and I'm here to stand up for Latinas because it's the three of us that comprise this month. It's the three of us that contribute to everyday society, breakthroughs in education, sports, business, even journalism, okay? It's Hispanics, Latinos, and Latinas that are continuing to make strides in not just the state, but this country. Because here's sort of an uncomfortable reality for a lot of people, especially, it's funny about woke white people. They like to invoke gender and identity when it suits them. But something that's going to make them really uncomfortable is that the United States of America isn't getting whiter. It's certainly not getting blacker. It's getting browner with more people like me, more people like my exceptional producer, and others who are Hispanics, Latinos, and Latinas throughout New Jersey and throughout the United States. It's our contributions that continue to contribute to the melting pot that is the good old U.S. of A., and especially during Hispanic Heritage Month, whether you're the son of immigrants like I am, and you're thinking back to your ancestors or your current family, think about everything we've gone through and think about all the progress we've made and still have so much more progress to accomplish. But during that time, we have a lot to brag about because we've helped shape these United States, and we're going to continue to do that for the foreseeable future. And that's what I'm thinking about right now. And that are some local stories for your consideration. A shout out to the Jersey City Times and their editor, Aaron Morrill, and certainly Ron Lear for their report on this very important story. Now, apparently, there will be no faculty layoffs for now, at the fiscally challenged New Jersey City University. So for the balance of 2022 and likely longer, NJCU has said it will not lay off any faculty despite its $20 million budget shortfall. Now, of course, the university did say they would cut some administrative staff, and rightfully so, folks. As someone who works in higher education, trust me, there's a lot of waste going around, whether it's at local community colleges, bigger colleges, or even bigger universities. There's a lot of just fat you can cut out of a budget. It's also seeking an investor to take over the ground leases for those parts of its West Side campus that's now labeled the non-core assets. Now, those locations include University Place, the University Academy Charter School, and the Business Development Incubator Building at 275 West Side Avenue. Now, recently, 83% of NJCU's faculty and administrative staff, which is represented by Local 1839, a subdivision of the AFT, the American Federation of Teachers, voted to accept a memorandum of understanding with the university, a summary which was obtained recently by the Jersey City Times. Now, according to AFT sources, 124 faculty members voted in favor of the MOA, 26 voted against it, and 2 abstained. Now, union negotiators recommended that members accept what they characterize as, quote, unpaid furlough days and other cost-saving measures to protect as many jobs as possible by avoiding mass layoffs. Now, the MOA summary notes that, quote, in exchange for accepting unpaid furlough days, there will be no layoff notices of furloughed employees prior to December 14th of this year for faculty and for November 29th of this year for professional staff. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as someone who, once again, works in higher education, I can see sort of the despair from a lot of faculty members. I've read stuff online on social media specifically by faculty members that are concerned for their jobs, and rightfully so. It's a tough time to be a college professor. Not every school is hiring, student registrations are down, and even as we're past COVID now, right, because the President of the United States on Sunday night when he was awake, right, when they woke him up from his nap, said that the pandemic is over, but COVID's still a problem. I mean, can this old fool make a decision? More on that in another show. But the point is that since COVID effectively has ended, colleges and universities alike continue to struggle with registrations. More and more kids want to stay home either for virtual learning, and they can just learn online. Not like anything else, ladies and gentlemen, certainly we have to look at what registrations may look like in January for the spring 2023 semester. But you know what? NJCU isn't only guilty of this. I would argue any state college and university, not just in New Jersey, but across the country, are guilty of wasteful spending. How many deans do we need at a college or university? How many assistant deans do we need at a college or university? How many administrative assistants do we need in each and every department? How about maybe just subsidizing or just cutting down departments? Folks, I'll say this again, and maybe I'm a little biased because I teach in social sciences, and maybe I don't want to give due credit to other disciplines, but folks, let's go with the majors that really, really matter and are going to help prepare our students, our kids ultimately, for the real world and to go out and get a job. Yes, social sciences are important. If you want to be a teacher, a social worker, maybe work in nonprofit organizations, maybe elected office, law enforcement, the criminal justice system, whatever, the social sciences are an immeasurably important type of discipline with a multitude of curriculum that's very, very important. But of course, like we all know, there are just BS majors within the liberal arts. Really, do we need women's studies? You can't go to Barnes and Nobles over a weekend, camp out with a thermos and your iPad and take notes? Why do we even have to bother subjecting kids to, $250,000 of debt, which I'm still waiting for Sleepy Joe to pay off completely because he promised that, right? To, go out with a women's studies degree. It's not going to get you a job anywhere unless you're going to be working in the aforementioned disciplines, right? Education, law enforcement, criminal justice, social work, being a guidance counselor, for God's sakes. A lot of these liberal arts programs need to be cut down. Women's studies, folk dancing, poetry, even some of the humanities, folks. Again, if you're not going to go to a college or university that's arts-centric, then what are you doing? Nothing against the arts. I love the arts. But we have to be realistic, ladies and gentlemen. We have to look at sort of tightening our belts, rolling up our sleeves, and figuring out how we can get out of these budget windfalls. NJCU isn't the only one that's guilty of it. Unfortunately, they've gotten the brunt of it because of irresponsible leadership from the president all the way down to the Board of Provosts and their executive board. Is every college and university in New Jersey guilty of bloated bureaucracy, as they say, and way too many administrators and way too many employees? Absolutely. I've seen it all the time. I've seen it during my years at Rutgers University in New Brunswick, and I started during my years at graduate school at Rutgers in Newark. But again, NJCU isn't only guilty of this. It's plenty of blame to go around. But right now, come the tough decisions, and I applaud NJCU for taking them. And of course, I know some faculty members might bitch and moan because that's what typical academics do, especially leftists, right? But right now, let's see how this pans out. And ultimately, once we turn the page, once we turn to 2023 into new calendar year, into new semester, we shall see what NJCU is facing. But I doubt that this is the only type of economic shortfalls that they'll have to encounter for the foreseeable future. Staying in Jersey City, and a shout out to the Dean of Hudson County Journalism, Al Sullivan, for his report this past week with Tap Into Jersey City. Now, Jersey City Mayor Stephen Fulop says that a run for governor is, quote, more than likely in 2025. Now, appearing on NJTV and NJ Spotlight News with Uncle Dave, you know who he is, right? David Cruz from NJ Spotlight News. He said that he's more than likely running for governor in 2025. Now, the Jersey City mayor obviously was citing more development, a leadership on environmental issues, and advancements in transportation would be issues he'd run on if his campaign indeed materializes. The mayor went on to say, quote, Jersey City has changed for the better. I love this job and I'm not eager to leave it, but after 12 years time in it, it may be time to let someone else step in and bring their ideas. Well, a couple of things. I know Stephen Fulop personally, and while he claimed he was only running for 2 terms, he ended up running for 3. We're not sure what's going to happen in 2025, but here's a spoiler alert, ladies and gentlemen. And I hate to break it to Stephen Fulop and his supporters, but he's not going to get anywhere near the Democratic nomination for governor in 2025. Here are the names that I consistently hear because my sources are pretty good statewide. And the names I keep hearing are Newark Mayor Ross Baraka, U.S. Representative Mikey Sherrill, who I hope is out of a job in a few weeks on November 8th, and U.S. Representative Josh Gottheimer, a fan of my brand of journalism, so shout out to the congressman respectively. But those are the names I would argue that are going to be really headlining the ticket for the Democratic Party in 2025. After 8 years of Governor Murphy, thankfully, once his term is over and he seeks whatever it is he's seeking, politically or otherwise, well, Democrats have to look at who they're going to nominate. And certainly Republicans are going to have someone like Jack Ciarelli, the former nominee from 2021, even Bill Spadia, who I'm a big fan of. He's the host of on NJ 101.5 FM during the mornings. He's a great talk show host, a great conservative. Even maybe John Bramnick, within his experience in the legislature, might make him a viable candidate. I seriously doubt it. I think his window is passed. But getting back to Democrats and getting back to Steve Fulop, folks, this is the reality about Stephen Fulop in Hudson County and throughout the state. Yes, the new HCDO chairman of the Hudson County Democratic Organization, Anthony Veneri, the chairman of the Hudson County Commissioners, respectively, is all in, and he's putting all his chips in the middle of the table to make sure Stephen Fulop can get elected. Folks, unfortunately, yes, Stephen Fulop's done a great job in mobilizing, in fundraising, in sort of generating this machine that knocks on doors and gets people, excited to vote every 4 years. Does that translate to something statewide? I don't think so. And I'm not saying this to be malicious. I'm not saying this to be a hater or to be, just someone who's looking to convey malice on this program. That's not the case. I've heard it from very well-in operatives in the state of New Jersey have told me. He has a big mountain to climb. Yes, he can fundraise. He has a lot of money so far, but guess who else has a lot of money? Mikey Sherrill, Ross Baraka, certainly Josh Gottheimer. Josh Gottheimer, folks, comes from that Bill Clinton school of mobilizing, of networking, and making sure that you can sort of, galvanize and maximize the votes when you're running. Those are 3 experienced politicians. Not to say Stephen Fulop isn't experienced. He's, won 3 terms as the mayor of Hudson County's largest city. But I would argue that he's going to run into considerable roadblock because statewide, Hudson County isn't well liked. That's no secret. Now, again, I'm not being malicious or mean-spirited or even hateful. Those are the facts, folks. And that's what I bring you every single week here on this show. I don't care about your feelings. I care about bringing you the facts, because ultimately that's what should guide your decision about who to vote for and ultimately who to back when it comes to not just local elections, but statewide elections too. Staying in Jersey City, and a story that really hits home for me, and a shout out to Elizabeth Morrill from the Jersey City Times for her report on this story. Now, here's some basics about what you need to know about the recent Jersey City new bike, board, and scooter laws that were revised at the recent council meeting. Now, the ordinance governing the use of bicycles, skateboards, and other vehicles in Jersey City has indeed been amended. Now, the changes added, quote, pedestrian malls or pedestrian plazas to the list of places where bike riding in Jersey City is not allowed. They also banned the use of skateboards, scooters, or roller skates of any kind on pedestrian malls by individuals ages 10 and over, permitting children younger than 10 to ride them in spaces only when the vehicles are non-motorized. Now, coming shortly after the renovations to the Newark Avenue pedestrian plaza were finished, and on the heels of a chorus of complaints about rogue bike riding on sidewalks, which is still a problem, more on that later, in the city itself, the amendments add to an already detailed code. So, for example, for readers who may have forgotten the basic aspects of the law as it applies to bikes, scooters, and roller skates, or who may have never known it, here's a following summary of the section pertaining to, quote, rules to using skateboards, scooters, and roller skates in residential areas of which have been revised. For example, rules for bicycles in residential areas. Children under the age of 9 may only ride on the sidewalk. All cyclists riding on city streets must travel in the same direction as cars and must generally obey the same traffic rules as cars. As we all know, when it comes to Mr. Black in the south side of Jersey City, maybe that's a part of the ordinance you should read up on. Also, cyclists must ride in the bike lane when going more slowly than the normal speed of traffic. For example, rules for bicycling in commercial areas. No individuals may ride on the sidewalk or any public property where the Department of Traffic and Engineering has posted signs prohibiting such use. All cyclists riding on city streets must travel in the same direction as cars and must generally obey the same traffic rules as cars themselves. Cyclists must also ride in the bike lane when going more slowly than the normal speed of traffic. For example, rules for bicycling in pedestrian plazas. All bicycling is prohibited in pedestrian plazas. Now, of course, the rules we'll get into more, obviously, on the site. And folks, and I urge you to read this article. It's a very well laid out article, as everything else is laid out very well on the Jersey City Times website. But this is where, again, I take exception to bicyclists, skateboarders, electric scooter riders. I mean, they have become an outright nuisance. And I talked about this at the recent council meeting. I'm looking forward to speaking at the next council meeting coming up this week, where my disdain for bicyclists, for motorcycles, for scooters, for everything else, they continue to be a downright nuisance in our communities. We live in the most densely populated county in the country, never mind the state of New Jersey, in the continental United States. And for whatever reason, cyclists seem to think that they own the road. And I talked about this when I appeared during the public portion of the last city council meeting in Jersey City on Grove Street, in the court chambers. Folks, you want to hold bicyclists accountable like I do? Start writing to your legislators. Start writing to your state senators. Start writing to your assemblymen and your assemblywomen and tell them, we want bicyclists, people who use electric scooters, and so on and so forth, to register these vehicles, to purchase plates, okay, and to purchase insurance. Because if they expect the same accountability out of us drivers, and believe me, folks, when you go to DMV, it's laborious and it's quite frankly a pain in the ass to either renew your registration or to even renew your license. Okay, so if I have to go through that inconvenience to operate a motor vehicle, guess what? For all of the nuisances and all the pains in the asses that exist that are bicyclists, because that's what you are, I think the same level of accountability has to be applied to you. So start writing to legislators, get on them, because you know what? Once bicyclists and people who ride electric scooters and everything else have to register their vehicles and pay like everybody else, trust me, you're going to see a different level of accountability. And that's all we want, because again, ladies and gentlemen, bicyclists continue to think that they own the road. How many times are we driving and we're subjected to either people riding bikes to deliver Uber Eats or Grubhub or whatever else? I'm not saying you shouldn't be eating, okay? I get it. Maybe time doesn't allow for you to go to a restaurant or pick up your own food. I understand the convenience of Uber Eats and all of these, food delivery services. I get it, folks. We live in difficult times, we're trying to get back to work, we're trying to maybe work multiple jobs, we need a quick bite, that will suffice. I don't have an issue with that. The problem is that these bicyclists and electric scooter riders have just manipulated the road. Many of them choose to not obey traffic laws, and I'm glad that the city council in Jersey City outlined these provisions in the ordinance. Will a lot of them listen to it? Of course not. They'll keep doing it, which is, again, vis-a-vis why Mr. Black got his ass run over by Amy DeGeez when riding at 8 in the morning. Okay? And again, I've talked enough about that incident. I don't think I need to pile on Mr. Black any more than I have already. But again, let that be a lesson to cyclists everywhere. I understand you don't want to operate a motor vehicle. It's easier and more inexpensive to ride a bicycle. You're saving gas. I get it. You get a workout. And for some people that I've seen riding bicycles, God knows you need one. And God knows you need to ride a bike more than once a day to and from work. But, that's a topic for another day. But overall, folks, when we're talking about these ordinances, I'm hoping this is something that is passed in every municipality in Hudson County. Kudos to Union City Mayor and State Senator Brian Stack. He's done that. He's been proactive for some time already, going back a couple of years already in Union City by putting up ordinance signs all across the city about not riding bicycles on sidewalks and scooters and everything else. That's being proactive. Again, that's what makes Mayor and State Senator Brian Stack one of the better mayors, if not the best mayor, in the state of New Jersey. He tries to stop a problem before it begins. And kudos to Mayor Stephen Fulop and the City Council for trying to stop this as well. But ladies and gentlemen, as we all know, bicyclists will not listen. They live in their own world. They think they own the road. And as far as I'm concerned, as more stringent ordinances can come, I'll be happy. And trust me, I'll be as gleeful as you'll ever see me. But more importantly, folks, write to your legislators. Put pressure on bicyclists to make sure that they're also held accountable because they have to share the road. They don't own the road. And that's our show for this week. To check out all the excellent programming brought to you by the leader in independent media here in Hudson County, the Hudson Media Group, please go to their websites, www.hmgtvshows.com, as well as www.livestream.com/hmgtv. Don't forget to check out the Hudson Media Group on their YouTube page. Make sure you like them on Facebook and follow them on Instagram and Twitter. And new episodes of the 7-time award-winning podcast, Talkin' the Hudson, which you can listen to via www.blogtalkradio.com/talkinthehudson, will resume later this month. So we'll have plenty of interviews. Special guests will include HUDPost publisher James De Los Santos, as well as Tap Into Jersey City columnist and the Dean of Hudson County Journalism, Al Sullivan, and many, many more. Make sure you like Talkin' the Hudson on Facebook. Of course, follow it also on Instagram. Check out my own Instagram, ladies and gentlemen, and my Twitter, which are the same handle, @TheFernandoZone. And also make sure you like me on Facebook. Again, you can't miss me. It's a nice mugshot there with Fernando Uribe. And of course, make sure you like Talking Politics with Fernando Uribe via the Hudson Media Group on Facebook as well. And also follow it on Instagram @Talking Politics with Fernando Uribe. And always forget, ladies and gentlemen, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it's always Talking Politics right here with the Hudson Media Group. I am New Jersey's premier and now 7-time award-winning journalist, Top 100 Latino via the Latino Spirit online magazine, and the Garden State's most beloved and factually accurate Hispanic conservative, yes, it's me, Fernando Uribe, saying so long, and as always, thank you so much for watching.